this happens to so many people in my demographic, like, why are we talking about this? You know, it's kind of like having a baby is what you're made to do. Something goes wrong, figure it out, but keep quiet. Like, no. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. You already read the title, so you know what this video is going to be about. Let me just get cozy for you guys. Look at my pun. Okay, back to the topic at hand. So today's video is all about infertility symptoms and trying to conceive and all that goes into the process of getting pregnant. All the stuff that I didn't really hear about, people didn't tell me about, and being a high-risk mommy myself, when I went through it, a lot of things that I learned were just new and it was never spoken about, and people would reach out to me because I was open and vulnerable with my pregnancy journey. They would reach out to me saying, you know, that happened to me too, that happened to me, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I'm like, if this happens to so many people, unfortunately rates are higher for women of color. If it happens to so many people in my demographic, like, why are we talking about this? You know, it's kind of like having a baby is what you're made to do. Something goes wrong, figure it out, but keep quiet. Like, no. So we're just gonna uncover a lot, not all, of problems. I don't want to say problem because I don't want it to be thought of as negative. So I probably just say obstacles, hiccups, things that can be defeated, things that we can get past. We're just gonna uncover it all. So firstly, I'm just gonna go over some infertility symptoms. So I'm sorry if it's noisy background, my bad. So we have this goal of making it through our pregnancies full term, just because this is when we assume that the baby has met all their milestones while in your belly. These babies who make it through full term are usually thought to be more equipped at living life outside of the womb. And this topic is so sensitive, and it's just critical that I use language that doesn't give any negative connotations with the process of trying to conceive when it is difficult for you, or maybe difficult for someone you know. I'm not sure if you're watching this because you're an expectant mom who was told that it will be a complicated journey for you, or if you're just watching this to better understand what some women may go through. If you're just watching out of curiosity, just bear with me. I'm gonna get wordy sometimes just to make sure I'm not offending anyone, because it's hard facing the facts. Not even facts, I can't say that, you see. It's hard facing the possible truths of what your journey through motherhood might be like. Being told that your journey through motherhood is going to be hard and scary. Nobody wants to hear that. People generally want to just hear, I'm pregnant, I'm going to have a 9-month full-term pregnancy, I'm going to deliver, and I'm going to raise my baby. You don't want to hear, you need help getting pregnant. Your body is not working the way it should be. You being told that, or just wondering about it because maybe you're just like, how come I have never gotten pregnant? Why have I never had a pregnancy scare? It's scary, and you might just think, let me just put this at the back of my subconscious and never bring it up again. And that's a coping mechanism for something that is just so severe and so gut-wrenching to many women, not all. So if you don't know me, if you're unfamiliar with my journey, hi, welcome. Nice to meet you. But my journey was a bit rough, to say the least. I did not make it to the full 9 months of being pregnant. I had my baby preterm, so that means I went into preterm labor before my little baby boy was meant to come out. So I had to deal with my reality of doctors telling me, like, I think it was about 5 months or 6 months, and this is when babies are not really considered viable. And this means that it's unlikely that they'll survive outside of your womb. So I'm already feeling his kicks, I'm knowing his schedule, I'm kind of guessing about his personality, I know his sex. This is a human inside of me. And then at a certain point of time, I was told by several doctors, no matter how many opinions it was the same, I'm going to go into preterm labor, and that's a fact. And it's a possibility that baby might not survive because it's so early in your pregnancy. Their lungs aren't ready, their brain isn't ready, their bodies cannot handle outside air, and you're not at that stage yet. So being told that as a first-time mom, it was a lot. It was a hard pill to swallow. Not even a pill, it was just like a boulder. Like, I built this bond with, my son, and you're telling me when I give birth, he might not be there. So I made it through my pregnancy to the point where several doctors, and not just resident doctors, attending doctors, came and interviewed me like, how did you stall your labor for a month and a half? Like, you were supposed to deliver. We're gonna take it down 2 notches or so and start off with just some basic information. These key points are not in black and white. Like, nothing is set in stone when it comes to pregnancy, when it comes to women's health. Like, we're still learning about this. We're still trying to figure out, why do certain things happen? Why do some people make it through and some people don't? I'm gonna try my best to use terminologies that like this is not a fact for everyone. It's only for some people or the general population. Or y'all know what I'm saying. Y'all know what I'm saying, right? Okay. These are some symptoms of infertility. First and foremost, we know your period, your menstrual cycle has almost everything to do with conceiving, becoming pregnant. There are some people that do have successful pregnancies full term despite having an irregular period or an irregular cycle. Do not be discouraged, right? But we're going to cover the majority today. So the majority of successful pregnancies start with a regulated period. So this means your period is 3 to 7 days, and you're always having it around the same amount of days each month, and it always comes around the same time. So when you are trying to become pregnant, you want to try your best to find ways to regulate your period. This can be like changing your diet, changing like what you do, your everyday lifestyle, because this is so important in conceiving your baby. So things that can cause your period to become irregular can be the birth control that you use. Sometimes when you come off of birth control because you're prepping your body to have your baby, sometimes there's some side effects, and these side effects can last pretty long. So you might you might take on certain traits of someone who struggles with fertility when you come off of your birth control, because your birth control is working to prevent births, right? And if you've been on it such a long time, or maybe it was a really potent one, it's going to take time for your body to get back in order, for your hormones to be regulated again, and everything to go back to normal. So certain birth controls, when you come off of it, your period becomes irregular. So that's one cause. Another reason that your period might be irregular is because of excessive exercising. So I know, like, a lot of us use fitness and working out as a form of therapy, and some people are addicted to it, or some people just enjoy it. They enjoy swimming, they enjoy playing sports, they enjoy running. This affects your cycle too. Like, I know when I used to do swim, my period was like 50% lighter. And I'm just like, I'm used to, changing every 30 minutes. That's an exaggeration, but a lot of things affect your cycle. So typically, the first symptom of infertility for some women is an irregular period. So if you're trying to have a baby, you want to kind of nip this in the bud. Let your GYN know, like, oh, I'm looking to have a baby within a year or two. Let's talk about my cycle. Let's figure out what's going on there, because I want to prepare my body. So you're going to find that a key component in conceiving successfully, despite being told that it's unlikely for you. So what I did was use the Flow app on my phone, FLO. This way you can chart your period, you log your period, and you log all the symptoms that come along with it. Be as specific as possible. And what I like about the Flow app is that there's icons and cute little pictures, just so it's not too wordy. So for me, when I organize my thoughts, I use a lot of images. You know, like I'm a visual learner. You can just use little icons. It was a heavy flow. I was spotting. It didn't come this month. Because when you do go to your GYN, they're going to want to know about your last cycle. They might want to know about your last 6 cycles just to see if there are any trends there. A key component in reaching this goal is prepping and planning in advance. So congrats on doing the first step, because you're watching this video, right? You're seeking knowledge before you start, and this is, you should already, you need some flowers, you need some awards. Like, let me just congratulate you, because you're taking all the right steps. So another symptom of infertility would be being over or underweight. So I know a lot of people don't believe in obesity leading to health concerns or being too skinny leading to any problems, but studies have shown that for many women, being overweight and being underweight, and you know, like a scale that you can use is just compare it to your height. So their ideal weights for specific heights, and by ideal I don't mean this is better, this is perfect. I just mean these two match together and have a lot of facts and research that support that these two should go together, the weight and the height. So I just don't want to offend you, and I don't want to get too crazy with that, because there are a lot of overweight women who have successful pregnancies, and there are underweight women who have successful pregnancies. I don't know, like, America makes you think skinny is perfect, skinny is in, and we're doing so much better with breaking those constructs. But sadly, a result of that ideology, which is so wrong, I just assume that if you're underweight, like, that has nothing to do with your ability to have a child. But it does. So you do want to speak to your doctor about getting your weight in check. And even if you're not fond of hospitals or doctors or Western medicine at all, these can just be more like conversational visits. This is not you being prescribed anything. This is you just having conversations. How can I regulate my period? What are some things I can do? How can I get my weight in check in terms so I can have a successful pregnancy? Because I'm already told that it might be a difficult journey for me, so I just want to prepare my body. These are just conversations you're having. You know, we're not getting into prescriptions yet, because this information will help save your pregnancy. Like, when I switched to high-risk team, I changed so much of what I was doing in order to prolong my pregnancy. A lot of the information is available online too. I personally just benefited way more when I spoke with the doctor himself, because doctors deal with so many different patients and people all over the world with different circumstances, so they can see sometimes what data doesn't show online. I don't know if I'm making this clear, but doctors have more experience in terms of witnessing crazy anomalies happening, right? Like miracles almost. They're ahead of the game because they're dealing with patients firsthand, so they can tell you stuff that maybe the internet won't tell you because there's not enough studies done on it. Doctors can tell you, like, yeah, there's no data on this, but I've seen several women in your situation succeed by doing blank. So it's really important to get a high-risk team and to have these visits in person with doctors or even nurses. So there are symptoms of infertility in men as well. With age, it's thought to be that their chances of fertility declines, even though, you know, we just say that men can have children when they're 80. Some can. But it does decline with age for men as well. Also, something else that affects your fertility is drug use and alcohol use. So, like, I know that we know no drugs and alcohol when you're pregnant, but when you're trying, you also have to limit your intake or just throw it out all the way. This is because studies show that excessive smoking leads to a rapid increase in aging your ovaries. So if you are a smoker and you smoke daily, multiple times a day, weekly, whatever it is, it may or may not speed up the process of your ovaries aging. So, and with alcohol, it also reduces your chances of fertility. But like I said, nothing is really in black and white. Some people smoke while they're pregnant and still have a healthy baby boy or girl, and we don't know why. Like, there's a lot of gray area here. But if you're watching this video because you were already told that you have pre-existing conditions that would make your journey difficult or different, you might want to just double back and say, you know what, I don't want to take any chances. I don't want to make this harder than it has to be. So I'm gonna stop smoking, I'm gonna stop drinking, just because I already know that I have some things working against me. You just want to kind of not play around, right? You want to give your body and your baby the best chance at surviving this journey. And I touched a little bit on the male age. The female age does have a lot to do with conceiving, and when I'm nervous I smile, so I'm getting like really nervous talking about this, right? And it's so bad because I'll be so nervous and uncomfortable and I'll smile, and then people think like what's funny, like why are you laughing? And I'm just like, this is how my body reacts, okay? I can't help it. No, okay, let me not get too nervous. I can do this. Talking about age and its correlation to pregnancy and conceiving is so nerve-wracking for me, because I know that our generation, millennials especially, we're waiting to have kids, right? We're doing things so differently compared to past generations where it's like normal to have children in your early 20s. For us, we're like, no, we want to have a career first, we want to have a home first, and we want to travel the world first, just to make sure our mental is good before we bring another person into the universe. So a lot of us are waiting to have children and waiting till our 30s. I had my first child at 27. When I was younger, I said I was gonna have my first baby at 21 just because I love children, and that didn't happen. You know, I was just kind of like, no, you know what, I'm gonna go birth control. No, we're not just gonna do it. We're not gonna take chances. I'm not ready. Old age can negatively affect your chance at having children. I know it's not what anyone wants to hear, but I have people close to me that waited, and a lot of people that waited to have children, they've had a success. That's loud. I think it's a motorcycle. A lot of people, they've made it through their pregnancy. They have a healthy baby boy or girl, but the journey was just so hard, and it takes a toll on your body. It takes a toll on your mind. And it might just discourage you from doing this again. And we see it in shows now, like even if you watch Sisters, I know the first season, Tyler Perry's Sisters, the first season, her GYN told her, like, you know, you're over 35 or whatever the age was, you're considered geriatric in terms of having a baby. And she's like, what? Geriatric? I ain't a grandma yet. But your eggs decline a lot, and you can still conceive, you can still make it through your pregnancy, and some people don't have any issues at all, and you can still get through to it. You can still defeat the odds. Like I made the impossible happen with my situation, so you can definitely do that. But it's just something to consider, like, you know what, just to put things in orders, because we're talking about planning ahead. So your eggs are at its prime when you're in your early 20s, even younger. Your eggs are great, and your chances of having a healthy, successful pregnancy and healthy baby boy or girl are higher even under 20s. But we don't really push for that in America, right? We focus on reducing teen pregnancies, you know? So I'm just gonna say, for your early 20s, that's when your eggs are at its prime. So if you're trying to conceive 3 children, you see 3 children in your future, they say you should start at 23. You'll have a high percentage of having 3 successful pregnancies if you start at 23 with your healthiest eggs. And then as time goes on, you still have chances for more healthy eggs and babies. If you are trying for 1 child your entire life, they say that the latest you should wait is about like 31. And this is just stats for having a baby without IVF or without like any infertility drugs. If you do want 2 children, they say you should start at 27. And once again, this is just assuming that you don't have any pre-existing conditions, you have a regular period, you're not on drugs. If this is triggering for you, I just want you to take a deep breath. It's not set in stone. We still don't know if age is 100% the reason why you may or may not have had one. Just because some women do have successful pregnancies when they're very old, even 40. I've heard of women getting pregnant at 40. Nothing's crazy. There are a lot of risks with waiting to have a child, and I know it's like not what we want to hear, but studies show that there's higher chances for these things to happen. And this is not all women, right? This is not all of us. I'm getting nervous again. I know some of you are like, why the hell are you smiling talking about this? I'm sorry. There's things we can do to work on preventing them. Like, there's so many tips I've learned in my high-risk experience to prevent a miscarriage. And it wouldn't even be called a miscarriage for me because I was past like 5-6 months when I'm still trying to find ways to keep my baby in. Because I started going into labor like at 5 into 6 months. My cervix shortening. They showed me on the ultrasound, like, scariest thing in the world. I would cry every single day because it's just like, what if my water breaks? So there are so many things I did to prevent having a miscarriage, and they don't even allow you to say that online, or when you post informational videos, they don't want you to say these are ways to prevent miscarriages, because we don't know. This is still being studied. We still don't have a definitive answer on why this happens. So I'm just gonna say there are a lot of things you can do to reduce the chance. It won't prevent it, but it can possibly, or not, but possibly reduce the chance of having a miscarriage. Do not be discouraged. I'm happy that you're here trying to learn more information. Don't be too hard on yourself, right? Before becoming pregnant, I'm pretty sure that I had a few miscarriages. I hope I didn't, but I'm pretty sure that I did. I'm not going to describe it because I don't want you guys to confirm it if you've had it before and it sounds the same. These experiences and these trials, they're so not easy to deal with, and that's just for lack of better words. The pain I felt was very real. The pain I felt and being told that I can't have kids and I need drugs and I need this and there's nothing I can do about it. That's very real, and it's unforgettable. For someone I love to get pregnant and then it breaking me down, like, that's not okay, and I don't have to keep it a secret, and it's very valid for me to feel that way, for me to be triggered. And I'm saying this, you're probably like, what are you talking about right now? I don't know if I'm losing anyone, but I'm just saying my experience and my thoughts during that time to kind of validate what you may be experiencing. I'm not assuming that you're dealing with it as hard as another person, but just in case you are, your pain is real and your doubts are real and your feelings are real. And me validating my feelings and reiterating over and over that it is a traumatic experience, it is traumatic to go through, is just a way for me to potentially have you validate your own feelings and things that trigger you, that you're not comfortable saying, I don't want to talk about that. I kind of don't want to see pictures of that. I kind of don't want to read this in the group chat because it triggers me from something that I'm going through. So it's recommended that if you had 2 miscarriages back to back, consult with your GYN, come up with a plan, and come up with a cause. There's no definitive cause on why miscarriages happen. We already went over that. But consulting with a professional will help narrow down the possible reasons for this happening, so you could work on a plan in in reducing the chance of it happening again. So if it happened 2 times, you had 2 miscarriages back to back, you need to come up with a plan with your doctor ASAP. And the more specific, the more data you have to show them, the better. So talk to them about your last experience, talk to them about any STDs or STIs in your history, because the more knowledge, the better, the more they have to work with, right? Because we can't give up the fight, we gotta really try to push through and figure out this. Lastly, the last symptom that is connected with infertility is having chronic illnesses. So if you have a history of chronic illnesses, or if you have some type of disease, if you have a syndrome, this can affect your fertility. I know a lot of women have been getting diagnosed with PCOS, especially women of color, polycystic ovarian syndrome, I believe. That means there's cyst in your ovaries. So many people have this, and we don't know because we don't talk about it. And it's very high in women of color. Some people have fibroids, and you never know because we don't talk about it. We're just trained or programmed, not even realizing it, programmed to see these as weaknesses, and we don't broadcast our weaknesses, right? We overcome them, or we shut up and fight through them and deal with whatever happens. Whereas in other demographics, not always, because I'd never want to sound like I'm highlighting and bigging up and praising another demographic than my own, because I love my women of color. I love us. I will always be team melanin, okay? And I don't ever want to say all black women, all brown women don't go to the doctor and don't get checkups. A lot of us do. A lot, especially millennials. We're breaking so many generational curses. But I'm just talking about the grand picture and just based on stats from people who've submitted information. In the same token, it is thought to be believed that other demographics don't have such high numbers because these are common conversations. You know, there's women who in other demographics who go to the GYN all the time because they're not told only go to the doctor when you have a problem. Oh, it's time for my checkup. They're conditioned to think you go to the doctor when you're healthy. It's just routine. So it works for them in the long run sometimes, because doctors notice stuff early about them. There's women who are single and other demographics, and it's just the norm to go freeze your eggs. Like, oh, I'm in my 30s. I'm gonna freeze my eggs in case I found my husband when I'm 36. And I'm gonna use those eggs and have a baby just in case. And it's just the norm. Did you freeze your eggs? Oh yeah, I did. When are you gonna do yours? It's just, this is what we do. I might regret keeping this in there, but I just thought it was important because I wish someone spoke to me about it. So this might kind of be like untraditional, non-traditional, which one is it? But another symptom of infertility is not ever being pregnant. This is crazy. And they don't really talk about this because it's just too vague and too broad. But let's say you have been having unprotected sex for years upon years, and you're not on birth control, and you've never gotten pregnant. It just might not work out for you and that person. But it can also be that, like, there's an underlying problem going on there, right? You might also be able to get like a vaginal ultrasound done. So if you know that this is something that you know you've been doing for years and you've never had a scare, it does not mean that you are infertile. It could just be that specific situation. It wasn't meant to happen. But it can also mean for a very small little, that's why I don't like saying this, because it's just like, it's too weird to talk about, but I'm going to talk about it. It was one of the reasons I was adamant about going to my doctor. And again, that does not mean, oh my gosh, she just said if you never got pregnant before, you infertile. What's she talking about? No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. I said there's just a very small chance. Me and my partner were comfortable with the idea of having a child. I want to have a baby within 2 years, so can we just check everything out? Because I've never been pregnant. It was just weird to me, so I just checked in. Then I realized, oh. Okay, so we're going to get personal now. We're going to talk about me and my struggles with fertility. I was told at a very young age, I'm one of the women of color who goes to the doctor often. I talk about my reproductive health with my mom often. Just like I said before, like, not all women of color neglect this. It was part of the norm for me. My mom instilled in me that I need to have a primary doctor, a primary physician, a primary gynecologist. Urgent cares is not our thing. In my family, like in my immediate family, urgent care and emergency room visits is not a thing for us. We getting checkups all the time, and we're catching things before they happen. This is just how I personally was raised. So me and my mother and I had conversations about my reproductive health when I was so young. And not young where it's like, girl, why are you talking about this? But young enough that I would talk to my doctor about it, just because I didn't feel like it was taboo. Like, I didn't feel like weird. So, you know, I would go to the GYN just for a checkup, and I want to have a baby soon. I got a boyfriend. You know, just random stuff. Like, I just had a really close relationship with my GYN at the time. And then one day, oh no, I was coming off of my birth control. I was on the depot shot, and this is like, I know some of y'all like, girl, why you took that? But it was the most potent form of birth control. At least that's what I was told. And it was just every 3 months you would get injected with it. And it's good for 3 months. I tried the pill and I would always forget, and then it'll be like scary, right? And I thought I was gonna gain weight. I didn't gain nothing. Everybody's different though. Some people do. A lot of people do. But I came off of it and I started noticing a change in my period. Like, it was all over the place. I'm just like, I didn't know when it was coming, and I was used to having a routine period. And then like a year passed that I'm off of birth control, and I'm just like, my period is still kind of all over the place. Sometimes it's 5 days, sometimes it's 7, then sometimes it's 8 days. Like, and I had come off of birth control because, you know, me and my partner were at a place where we were like, you know what, I wouldn't mind having a kid with you. I want to have a kid with you. So we got to that point in time, and I went to my gynecologist and I told him, like, I'm off birth control. He's like, wow, I'm okay with getting pregnant now. I have a good job. I have my own home. I was living on my own since I was like 21. My parents still helped me, but I had my own apartment at 21, right? So things were very different. My circumstances were very different, and I was just kind of like, yeah, it's okay if it happens now. Me and my partner agreed. And then he's like, let me check your ovaries, and he did an ultrasound. And I'm so young, I'm in my early 20s, right? And he was like, you have PCOS. And he kind of did it like a brush over the shoulder, a brush off the shoulder. This is like regular. And I'm just like, excuse me, what? What is that? And what do you mean I have it? And what does that have to do with me wanting to have a baby? So he realized I was one of those patients, right? Like, I want every detail. Tell me now so I can fix this. And he was like, oh, it's polycystic ovarian syndrome. And when you do want to have this child, like when you're serious, let me know, because I might prescribe you a drug, and it's called metformin, and it will help you have a baby. And I'm just like it was like going in one ear and out the other. All I heard was, I can't have a baby. This is like the number one thing on my list of being a human being. Me personally was procreating. I love children so much, and I wanted to have a baby since I can remember. My mom said I've always talked about kids. I wanted to be a teacher when I was like 5. I want to be around kids. I want to raise them and love them, and just create better humans for the world. So I know some people, it's like, yeah, I'll have kids when I'm older, but it's not like, I'm not pressed. For me, I was pressed. Like, this is my reason for being on earth, to be a mom. And so I guess it hit me a few minutes later, and I'm dealing with the traumatic experience of just taking it in and realizing, oh, this might not be something that your body can even do, right? And I say traumatic because that's what it is. This is a traumatic experience. Hearing that you might struggle with fertility, whether you've been told this and moved along with your life fine or not, it doesn't take away from the trauma, right? A lot of people who hear something like this, they hear that they have a condition that will affect their fertility negatively. I don't want kids. I'll be fine without kids. I'm not pressed to have kids. Girl, I'm living my life. And that doesn't mean that this news was any less traumatic, right? A lot of us have different coping mechanisms, and some people, their style is avoidant. I'm gonna avoid this, I'm gonna deflect, I'm going to live my life and just be like, you know what, I can't have kids. That breaks my heart, but I'm not gonna let anybody know my heart is broken. I'm gonna move on and get past this. I don't want kids anyway. Whereas me, I'm very honest with my feelings. And you know, like my mom was waiting in the parking lot, and then I just went and told her, and she was just kind of like, excuse me, do you want me to go up there with you? Let's talk about this. Let's have a private consultation. And I'm just like, I want to go home. And I went home and I researched it, and I read a lot about like, there's no cure, but it can go away temporarily, but it'll always come back. And I just went into like a deep rabbit hole on WebMD and all these websites, and it was just breaking my heart. And then I'm just like, how will I tell my partner? Like, he's gonna look at me different, right? He's gonna look at me like, you can't have kids. So is this really a long-term thing? My partner never said anything like this, but just me knowing that we're humans and you just might think of it like, so learning that I can't do that. So I'm just thinking like, oh my God, whether I like it or not, he's gonna be less attracted to me because I can't continue his legacy, our legacy. And I just cried and I cried and I cried, and I dived into my emotions. And when I got out of it after doing like research, and I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna try this. You know, when I'm really ready, I'm gonna be open to medication. Maybe I should freeze the eggs I do have, just in case my uterus can't hold a baby. I can freeze eggs, and then maybe I'll have to get a surrogate. Like I dived into my feelings, and then I came up with solutions, possible solutions. This is the only way I could get through this. And I'm so young. I'm like 22, 21. I don't know, but I was so young. And I would talk about it with people, and some girls knew about it, but a lot of girls were like, I've never heard of that. And then fast forward, it's crazy that I can talk about this without crying. Let me just say that I came a long way. Somebody would just talk about pregnancy, and I'd go home and I'd cry myself to sleep. And it has nothing to do with me, nothing to do with them. Just the topic would be triggering, and I would just go home and cry. So to be here now, like where I can talk about it and not even break a sweat, almost, I'm kind of proud of myself. And I just hope that's a testimony to you guys. Like, you guys can get past this. Mentally, you can get past it, where you can talk about it and share your story, even though there's no shame in breaking down. So then time passed, right? My period had gotten back on track this time. And knowing that I had it, I decided to stop taking birth control for good. It was a big life change, and it stopped me from getting into certain relationships because I was very vocal about this. And if they didn't agree, I would respect it. But I tried so many times, and I would not have a baby. And I'm just like, getting your hopes up and then taking a test and then it being negative. It is a traumatic experience. You don't forget these things. When you have an abortion, people like to forget about it, but you never forget it. You'll see a commercial and somebody mentions it and it breaks your heart. Some women, not all. But a lot of these things are very triggering. So me seeing pregnancy tests being negative again and again and again. We're gonna fast forward and get to the good part. So I'm not on birth control for like years now, and I'm getting this opinion, and I got second opinions with my initial gynecologist that was with me for years. So I'm not saying he misdiagnosed me. I got second opinions and they confirmed that I had it. Plus my period was irregular, so that's even more reason to assume that I had it. But now, years later of me being like birth control free and taking other precautions, he was just like, I wouldn't have diagnosed you with that. And I'm like, excuse me? Then he was like, do you want to see the ultrasound? Do you want to see pictures? And I'm just like, yes, I do. So he printed out the pictures. He's like, these are very normal. This is not enough for me to diagnose you with it, And by enough, I mean like enough cyst for me to say it's a syndrome. And I'm just like in disbelief. Then I just kind of just let it go. Then I went to a different GYN because I'm just like, what are he telling the truth? Like, so this is a female one, a Russian lady, and she's just like, I will say I see this because you've asked me to check, but if I had checked this without you telling me anything, I would not diagnose you with anything. And I'm just like, so why was I diagnosed with this years ago? Why, when I was trying, nothing happened, I didn't get pregnant? And she was like, it could have been the birth control coming out of your system. It's unlikely that birth control makes you infertile for a while, but it is possible, and I've seen this. And that's why I push for people who are even against Western medicine to still have conversations. It doesn't mean you have to take prescriptions, but just to have conversations with professionals who've dealt with real human beings and dealt with stuff that's not what we can find online. So she's telling me that having an irregular period and coming off of such a potent birth control affected my body, and my body took long to regulate. She went over other symptoms of having this syndrome, and she said I wasn't overweight. I didn't have enough facial hair. Like, you get a lot of body hair when you have it. I do have facial hair. I be handling it, okay, my little chin. My symptoms weren't enough for her to diagnose. My period had been regular, so she was just saying my body just needed time to reset. And I'm not saying that if you were diagnosed with it, that this applies to you too. I don't want you to disregard what your doctor said and just wait, because sometimes it is factual for some women. I want us to get all the information possible first and have meetings with professionals first before we just disregard it. She's like, no, I personally would not diagnose this to you. So 2 people now. I'm just like, okay. I'm allowing myself to feel a little bit happier. I'm allowing myself to be vulnerable to the idea that I can be a mom. Unforeseeable circumstances, let's catch it early by having these regular visits, by asking these questions, by talking to our daughters about possible scenarios. So I just hope that this video is like the first step, the little gateway drug into this world of being more vocal about problems with infertility and being more proactive with finding solutions to it. And so there are alternatives if you're told that you may have trouble conceiving. My lip is like peeling. I've been talking for so long, like for hours, guys. I know I'm gonna cut out a lot of this, but so it seems shorter to you guys. But one thing that you can do is freeze your eggs. Let's talk about some possible solutions for anyone struggling with infertility. Freezing your eggs requires you to inject hormones. It's very uncomfortable. It's not something that anyone wants to do. It's not a walk in the park, but it does work as kind of like an insurance plan. I hate to say it that way. A lot of people just don't like the idea of it because it's not natural, especially our demographic. Our parents, our family, our culture doesn't push for all this outside stuff, whereas other people, it's just the norm. Once you reach this age, girl, you better do it. Like, why wouldn't you do it? Why not? But for us, it's like, why do you want to do that? A lot of people associate freezing eggs with sperm donors, having a baby with a random person's donation. That's not the case all the time. Some people freeze their eggs to conceive and reproduce with their lifelong partner. So for me, that's something I wanted to do. I wanted to have a baby with a lifelong partner. And so in my head, as I'm planning for best case scenario, I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna freeze my eggs, and then we're gonna try with my husband when I'm married, and God forbid that doesn't work. I have this insurance plan here, right? I have some frozen eggs to use, and it sounds crazy. I just knew the type of person I am and how passionate I was about becoming a mother before I leave this earth. I wouldn't forgive myself if I didn't try this, right? Something else you can do is taking prescription drugs that increase your fertility rate. Like metformin was one of them that I spoke about earlier. Other things, like a more holistic way, is changing your diet, and there's a lot of foods and natural plants that are thought to increase a woman's fertility. And anything you have to do, you have to be really committed to doing it. And you have to have an open mind, right? Because having a closed mind will just have you soak in your I can't do this kind of ideology, and you kind of want to just be open, like maybe I'll try this way, maybe I'll be open to this way, maybe I'll do this. Before you reach the age where it is unlikely to have a successful pregnancy, at least you know, like, you know what, it's getting kind of late in my timeline. I'm glad I have an open mind to all these other things, because now I can try those. Like, it doesn't have to be your first option, it could be like a last resort kind of thing. Aside from fertility treatments like IVF or drugs, or changing your lifestyle completely, doing it the holistic way, you can also consider adoption. You can also consider surrogacy. If your body can't carry the baby, maybe someone else can, right? And this is extremely expensive. It's not everyday conversation, but let's make this like a normal conversation. Let's not make it taboo. Let's talk about it so more people can know, and so we can stop asking people like, when are you having kids? Like I just want it to be at a point where this is something normal. Freezing eggs is normal. Getting checkups yearly is normal. All of this is normal. Nothing is to be embarrassed about. I want us to know that, oh, you have this condition. I feel for you, and I'm going to be more sensitive with you in our friendship going forward with the things I say. Like, the more that we make this normal, the more we can come to a certain level of peace around this whole pregnancy and fertility traumatic story. Like, okay, so that was a mouthful. I know, I'm sorry, but I just wanted to make sure I covered the key important factors in infertility. This is not always easy. It's not always 1, 2, 3, right? It's, for some women it's hard, and for a lot of women, especially our generation who's waiting much longer to have children, which you have, it's your prerogative. You have every right to do this. I know some people are saying maybe 40, I want to do it when I'm 40. A lot of people are successful in their pregnancies that way, but it's important to know that with heightened risk, these are other factors that you want to keep in your knowledge, right? And for the future, I'm kind of thinking way far ahead, but for the future, I just hope that when we have our daughters and sons, we teach them that these things can happen. I don't want us to instill into our daughters and sons that you're made to get pregnant and it's gonna happen this way, and if it doesn't happen this way, something's wrong. You know, like kind of like how we were taught, like you just have a baby and then you post the good things, you post the pictures of your belly, you have a baby shower, you don't talk about anything that went wrong, you keep it a secret. No, I want us to teach them like these are some things that can happen to you or someone you know. We're not going to speak it into existence, but I am going to inform you that if this happens, you can tell me and we can work on a plan together. As someone who is an older woman, much older, and she just actually spoke to me, not knowing that I was going through this. She spoke to me saying like, if you can have a child, you need to do everything you can to ensure that when you're ready, you have the ability to have a child, because at my age, I found the love of my life and I can't have any kids with him. I'm just like listening to her and I'm just like, wow, you don't even know what's going on with my life story, but you're giving me that advice. And when things like that happen, I think of it as God talking to me. And it was just reassuring, like, Queen, keep spreading the knowledge to other women. And I just felt like he uses me, he used her as a vessel, and he's using me as a vessel now to speak to you guys about it. But yeah, I just wanted to do this little informational video to hopefully connect with you guys and let you know like you're not the only one, and this is so common and there's so many ways to defeat the odds. And sometimes you can be misdiagnosed, sometimes you are diagnosed correctly, but there are alternatives. Like, I just don't want anyone to feel like it's the end. But just make sure you're applauding yourself for thinking ahead and planning ahead and doing the research and doing the hard work, because a lot of women don't. They give up as soon as they hear it. They don't want nothing to do with it. They tell their brains so much, I don't want kids, to the point where they believe it, and they forgot that this was just something I said to avoid people asking me about it. The power of the mind is so strong. You want to set time to really feel what your heart is feeling, but also set time to think with your mind and look up ways to overcome this obstacle. So I'm going to close my video here. Super lengthy, probably like my longest video ever. And I'm going to do another video on tips that I had that I was told by so many people, nurses, family members, doctors, and they're so kind of like out of this world, but there's so many tips on reducing chance of miscarriage, and I think it really saved my pregnancy. I'm also going to do a video on the condition that I had when I was pregnant. So when I was pregnant, and I mentioned that I kind of went into labor really early, I started dilating super early. That is called insufficient cervix or incompetent cervix, and it typically leads to preterm labor, but there's so many ways on preventing that from happening. So I'm going to do a video on that. There's just a lot to cover, and I finally at a place. I filmed this video so many times and then broke into tears and turned the camera off. I'm finally at a place where I can get through the video without breaking down. I'm just not there yet where I want to cry on video. And I hope something resonated with you. I just hope I didn't waste your time. And if you have any other questions and maybe you don't want to wait for my next video, DM me. I'm not great with DMs. I'm not great with texts because I kind of like, I'm really strict with my mind. Like if I have a lot of boundaries. So take a lot of personal mental days where I just want to get me right. So I might not respond right away, and it's not me being neglectful to you. It's nothing to do with you. It's everything to do with me. This is not a day where I want to check my texts, check my DMs now. So hit me up. Check out my Instagram, AMAMASGUIDE on Instagram. Check out my blog, queensidem.com. And follow me on Instagram. Subscribe to my YouTube for more content like this.